So a lot of folks have been asking, can Donald Trump escape criminal liability altogether if he steps down before the end of his term, Vice President Pence is sworn in as president, and then Pence pardons former President Donald Trump? Can Donald Trump escape criminal liability altogether? I suggest the answer to that question is no. Let's talk about that. Because holding a criminal president accountable, like justice, matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So we now know that Donald Trump lied to we the people about the dangers posed by the coronavirus. He didn't tell us how deadly it was, though he knew. He didn't tell us how contagious it was, though he knew. He didn't tell us that it was airborne. He didn't tell us how easily transmissible it was from person to person by just breathing near somebody who was infected. He didn't tell us that we could have taken reasonable precautions, common sense precautions by just donning masks. He didn't tell us that in January or February or March, though he knew. He says he wasn't trying to create panic. He wasn't giving us an opportunity to protect ourselves. He wasn't giving us a chance to take reasonable precautions. He was lying to us. He was concealing the true nature of the coronavirus. He lied and people died. They died needlessly. And now it is beyond dispute, I would say, as a former 30-year prosecutor, 22 of those years investigating, indicting, and trying homicide cases. It is indisputable that Donald Trump has criminal homicide exposure for what he has done to the American people. Folks have been asking recently, well, how do pardons play into all of this? Can Donald Trump escape all responsibility federally, not obviously on the state front? He will be charged in the states, and those are pardon-proof charges and prosecutions. But can he escape all federal responsibility for the crimes he committed if he is pardoned? And there are legal scholars who say presidential pardons are absolute, untouchable, unchallengeable in court. To those scholars, I would say, listen to this hypothetical and tell me if you maintain that presidential pardons are unchallengeable. Let's assume, hypothetically, that Donald Trump enters into a conspiracy, which is just an agreement to commit a crime. He enters into a conspiracy with Steve Mnuchin, his Secretary of the Treasury, and Vice President Mike Pence. And here's what they decide to do. They decide to loot the U.S. Treasury, take all the money out, ship it to an offshore account to be split 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 among the three of them. And Donald Trump then pardons Steve Mnuchin for that crime, pardons Vice President Pence for that crime. Donald Trump then steps down before his term expires. Vice President Pence is sworn in as president, and now President Pence pardons former President Donald Trump. Legal scholars, are you contending that those pardons are unchallengeable, untouchable? I don't think that's what this country was founded on, the principle that runaway, corrupt criminal executive branch officials can orchestrate those kind of corrupt pardons, loot the U.S. Treasury, and get away with it because presidential pardons are unchallengeable. I suggest that what the judiciary would do with those pardons is the following. First of all, beginning in January, if that hypothetical situation played out, and is anything really beyond belief these days with Donald Trump, If that situation played out, we would have to go into the grand jury beginning in January and indict Donald Trump and Steve Mnuchin and Vice President Pence for conspiracy to loot the Treasury and obstruction of justice by delivering these corrupt pardons. And we would haul them into court, and they would then offer up the pardons as an absolute defense, saying, Judge, these pardons are unchallengeable, untouchable, nothing can be done. Can I predict, folks, from spending 30 years in courtrooms, that a judge would not rule that those corruptly delivered pardons are lawful, are untouchable, are unchallengeable? They're void, they're voidable. And I believe the judiciary would strike them down. And here's why. First of all, it's not what our country is about, right? Letting corrupt executive branch officials weaponize the pardon power in the Constitution to loot the U.S. Treasury, deliver pardons to one another, and get away with it scot-free. That's not our country. That's not our democracy. That's a dictatorship or an autocracy, or, I don't know what it is, but it's not America. And if judges were called upon to decide that legal issue, if they were to decide, yep, these are lawful pardons, all good to go, take the Treasury money and run, Trump and Pence and Mnuchin, you know what the judiciary would be doing? They would be neutering itself. The judiciary would be making itself a second-class branch of government, not a co-equal branch of government, because executive officials could deliver these corrupt pardons and put themselves above the law, put themselves beyond the reach of the judiciary. The judges aren't going to do that because it's not the right thing to do. It's not the lawful thing to do. It's corrupt, and it completely disregards the balance of power between three co-equal branches of government. The judges aren't going to do it, folks. They're not going to do it. And we got a little glimpse, a little bit of foreshadowing that tells us that they're not going to do it. And that was in the July Supreme Court opinion, where they handed down a ruling that said no man is king. Donald Trump does not have absolute immunity, and he's not above the law. And they sent the cases back, these, tax cases, the financial document cases against Donald Trump. They sent them back to the trial courts, but they announced a principle that Donald Trump is not above the law. The president is not above the law. However, if they bought in to the legality of these corruptly delivered pardons, that would contradict that Supreme Court precedent, because they would be putting Donald Trump above the law. And the judiciary is not going to do it, in my opinion and in my experience. This is uncharted territory, but you know what? You got to take maiden voyages to create law, to create precedent. And that's what we're going to have to do come January. Now, how does it translate to the more concrete circumstance that we find ourselves in, with Donald Trump lying and people dying? As I say, Donald Trump has criminal homicide exposure. No two ways about it. But how about Mike Pence? Well, let's think about this. Mike Pence was the head of the coronavirus task force. Mike Pence heard the president lie, saw the president lie, knew the danger that was involved in the president lying to the American people, intentionally downplaying the danger posed by the coronavirus, completely hiding how easily transmissible it was. I mean, if Donald Trump had only said, folks, everybody put masks on, then we would have gone the way of South Korea or New Zealand, and we would have virtually eradicated the coronavirus by now, as have those countries. But no, Donald Trump was just concerned about his re-election prospects, so he lied, and he let people die. And Mike Pence was right there with him every step of the way. As the head of the coronavirus task force, he knew Donald Trump was lying to the American people, and he stood by idly, which makes him complicit. It makes him a co-conspirator. And that's why, in concrete terms, if they try to play this, everybody gets a corrupt pardon game, where Trump gives one to Pence and then steps down, and Pence gives one to Trump, I would bet a buck, folks. Yes, I am not a high roller. I would bet a buck that the judiciary will not stand for it. They are not going to rule that those are unchallengeable, untouchable pardons. They will rule that they are unlawful and they are voidable. And then accountability. Accountability for a criminal president and his criminal administration. And why is it important to hold a criminal president and his co-conspirators, his criminal administration accountable? You know why. Because justice matters. It matters. Folks, please stay safe. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.